Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is your host, Justinian Mason, aka Hendrix, and welcome to Panther Time. This first episode, we're going to give you a quick taste into what this podcast is about, into who I am, into what Panther Time is, and into a little more of what you'll be listening to throughout the life of this podcast. The goal of this podcast is really to bring different perspectives to the table, to help shift the paradigm and relevant conversations going on today. This podcast will talk about culture, comics, cannabis, and everything in between. So adjust your watches and let's get started. This is Panther Time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's going on, people? What's going on? Welcome back. Once again, this is your host, Justinian Mason, T'Challa Hendrix, the Panther extraordinaire himself. And I'd like to welcome you to Panther Time, this podcast of mine, a project that's been a long time coming, something I've been plotting on for many, many years now, since way back in the blog days. And I'm excited to bring this to you all as someone who spent the past couple of years more quiet than they usually are. I'm excited to rejoin the conversation in a different way. Like I mentioned, the goal of this podcast is to really spread different perspectives. In this first episode, you'll get a quick snippet of what I mean by that. But mainly, you'll get to learn a little bit more about myself, your host, where I'm from, things I'm passionate about, my values, what I believe in. And you'll probably get a good idea of some core themes that we'll tap into throughout the life of this show. So strap in. For those who do know me, I'm excited to chat with y'all. For those who don't know me, things are going to get a little weird. Things are going to get a little trippy. Things might get a little anti. I'm definitely one who's known to have a different perspective than most. And something I don't normally do, but I will do here, is share those perspectives and elaborate on those perspectives. It won't just be me you'll hear blabbering on this podcast. I do plan to have guests, not every episode, but there will be guests, people from my personal life, from my professional life. I live in Los Angeles, so this is one hell of a place to interview interesting people that you may come across. And as a self-proclaimed connector of people, one of my ultimate goals is to try and connect as many people as possible. So there's definitely people I don't even know who I would love to speak with, who I'd love to interview, who I'd love to connect with others who I know would love to speak with and interview them. So if I can make that happen, that'll be an added bonus. But perspective and different perspective is that something I definitely believe is needed today. It's been one hell of a past couple of years. And the way people communicate and connect has definitely changed in that time. I'll definitely say people are connecting and communicating more than ever, more frequent than ever, with more people than ever. And I won't break down all of my opinions about that, but it's just interesting that in this world where we have so much connectivity, we have so much access to different people, different perspectives, different things, that more often than not, we see a lot of the same. Whether it's movies, whether it's music, whether it's trends, fashion, whatever it is, we see a lot of the same stuff. That doesn't mean that what we're seeing is necessarily the truth, or what we're seeing is necessarily the true status quo. So shifting the paradigm, uncovering some truths, and having a hell of a lot of fun along the way is something we'll all do together. So I'm excited. Can't say it enough. I'm excited. So while I'm sitting in Los Angeles, I'm originally from the Midwest, an Ohio native, Cincinnati to be exact. I always like to say Cincinnati by way of the Caribbean. Both my parents immigrated here from their respective islands, Barbados and Puerto Rico specifically. So first generation Afro-Latino coming through your airwaves right now. And it's actually that Cincinnati upbringing that really started getting the podcast idea stirring in the back of my mind. Cincinnati has a long radio history, whether it's an old sitcom back in the day that your parents probably watched about a quirky radio group, or the ridiculous amount of sports and talk radio that goes through Cincinnati. I grew up listening to that on car rides to school, to track meets, to sporting events, all sorts of stuff in the car with my parents. And I always appreciated it. It's kind of funny listening to old people, at that time, listening to old people mumble and groan and gossip, really, and talk about all sorts of stuff, to now you turn on ESPN and that's all it is. Different dudes in weird suits gossiping and hooting and hollering at each other. So really that old school AM radio tradition is kind of in the back of my mind as I start this podcast. And I appreciate it. I really appreciate the long form. I feel like a lot of things have gone short form nowadays, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whatever it is. Everything's real short. Our attention spans, they claim, are super, super short nowadays. But contrary to that, movies are still huge, video games are still huge, and our generation is eating up podcasts left and right, which is funny considering nobody wanted to listen to AM radio back in the day, especially NPR. None of us wanted to listen to NPR back in the day. All of a sudden, Tiny Desk Concerts is the coolest thing around. They got everyone from Snow Allegra to Benny the Butcher pulling up on NPR. Like, I don't know who sent that up, but shout out to them. That shit is crazy dope. But, the re-evolution of AM radio is really coming strong through podcasts. And podcasts are great because you can really have an extended conversation. You can really give people something to digest that they can listen to whenever, however. They can break it down. You don't have to take it all in one setting. But it's something I really think is more memorable than a quick clip that might get however many views, but doesn't really stick to your mind, versus something that is really of substance that people can take with them. I mean, the ultimate goal is to share it. If at any point in time you hear something on this show that resonates with you, that you feel resonates with someone who needs to hear it, if you learn something, like, shout out to you, but share it, share this podcast with as many people as possible. But getting back to, Cincinnati and that Ohio upbringing, the radio was cool, radio was a big part of it, but growing up, first gen, it was interesting, for the most part, my parents, my siblings, myself, the only family I've had in the States. So, close-knit family, growing up in a place like Ohio, being as diverse as our family was interesting. For the most part, growing up, I was the only Afro-Latino person I knew. in my general vicinity. And this was before, our community, y'all know who I'm talking about, got as woke as we are nowadays. So not everyone was celebrating their fellow Afro-Latino and African brethren. So, it was interesting, but I mean, I didn't give a fuck. I was always a weirdo. I was too caught up in Pokemon and video games and running around outside and breaking my glasses to really pay too much attention to that. Like, I was observing, I was peeping it, but it was whatever. Definitely had to deal with my fair share of BS from our brethren from the Caucasus Mountains, but I think we're all accustomed to that now. That's definitely prepared me for the past 5-10 years. There's not much that surprises me when it comes to BS, racism, prejudice, whatever. Like, I saw it all growing up for the most part. I went to all-boy Catholic high school, like the all-boy Catholic high school out there. So, like, I peeped it. I went to school with, the uncles, the pops, the kids of the people who are doing the shit people complain about today. But perspective's great. Perspective's great. Living and not even living, but hanging out with and being boys with people from deep west side Cincinnati all the way to deep east side Kentucky, Indiana, wherever. Like, you get to know people, you get to understand people. We'll talk about my work experience later, but you really get to understand people. But like, Ohio is crazy. It's great. Living in LA now, looking back, thinking about what I've paid to live rent wise, especially with this pandemic. Like, I think all the time, it's like, damn, I'd love a yard. I would love to cut this, rent in not even half, like just fraction the shit out of this and do other things as I'm locked down and as this thing continues. But Ohio's dope, yo. Ohio's dope. Didn't appreciate it when I was a youngin', but as an adult, it's great. Family, the family I had there, like, we really stayed close. We really stayed, for the most part, to ourselves. Really locked in. Our parents, shout out to our parents for doing everything they needed to do to make sure we didn't need to worry about them, about ourselves for the most part. Like, they made sure we were fucking good. My parents are next level humans. I'll put them two up against any other combination of two human beings on the planet, and I'm putting my money on them. But it's like, I look back now and I feel like I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed. I know I'm privileged to be as prepared as I am for the world because of those two. So, yeah, Ohio, as reminiscent as it's sounding right now, like, I could not wait to get the hell out of there. I was blessed to play sports, play football, and use that to get out. I went to school upstate New York, SUNY Albany, the frozen tundra that it was. They somehow tricked me on my recruiting visit by linking me up with a dude that's, to this day, one of my best friends. And we had one hell of a time. I was already 18. I had a fake ID. They had bars that were like 18 and up anyway, and I had a blast. I had a fucking blast, and it was a wrap. I knew I was going there. But yeah, I left. I fled Ohio, went up to Albany, New York, played football, and it was like the complete opposite of Ohio. Like, capital New York, 2.5 hours, 3 hours away from the city. Went from being the only Afro-Latino person to, living across the street from a house full of, Hispanic, Puerto Rican chicks. Like, I think a quarter of our school was like international students or something like that. Most of the people from the school were from the city or Long Island or Jersey or somewhere in that capacity. So, like, it was fucking great. It was really fucking great. Dove right into a lot. Football, the classroom, partying for sure. I went from an all-boy Catholic school to co-ed school in New York. 12-hour drive away from my parents. Like, I was having a blast. And I redshirted, so Super Saiyan senior, didn't play football my freshman year. Was pretty much practicing and supposed to be going to class. Like, I was having a great time. And while I was there, I'm pretty sure every single year we were a ranked party school by whatever establishment ranked that shit. But, like, I talk about some stories, and For those who remember Blue Mountain State, like, it was some Blue Mountain State type shit. I asked anyone, who went to Albany during the time I went there, and specifically knew or messed around with the football team, like, we partied. We went hard. And it helped that we were nice for a majority of the time we were there. We were nice for a majority of the time I was up there. So, like, it's easy to party when you're good. But, like, yeah, Albany was dope. Going to school in New York was dope. I met some crazy fucking people, some great fucking friends, learned a lot. Having that extra year of school, I got to double major in communications and sociology, which is kind of like the same thing, but not really. Sociology really dives deeper into like the science of people. Communications really is some bullshit. But yeah, it's crazy. I do actually use a decent amount of stuff that I learned in school, not necessarily directly, but as my career ended up developing, just if you can understand people, that's a very valuable thing. And I have a pretty good understanding for people, which is interesting considering how I feel about most people. I was rooting for Thanos, but it's all good. It's all good. Y'all are growing on me. So yeah, Albany was a great time. Playing football was a great time. Like having the opportunity to play D1 like sports, like truly competing at something at like the next level is a crazy experience. Crazy experience a lot of people, including myself, take for granted in the moment. Youth and athleticism is wasted on the young, but it's so cool. I can't say anything but that. Like to be able to actually play football in college and live that experience is second to none. Like it really is. It really does feel like I lived a second life, or I'm on like my second or third life, because it's just like such a weird random chapter that like exists outside of everything else I've ever done. Especially you think long term, those 4 or 5 years of life, and even if you make it to that next level, you get 8 years total of next level football if you're lucky. That's a blip long term. So I definitely got the most out of it. I unfortunately, didn't end my career the way I wanted to. Tore my Achilles, and that quickly ended things. Quickly took my mind for a loop, tossed me to the sunken place, and I was like Black Van Wilder for my last year of college, just partying my ass off and working a lot of weird jobs and just trying to have as much fun as I could, not necessarily focusing as much as I should have on like, all right, Jay, what are you going to do now that you're not trying to go to the next level? I got on that path soon after because, my ass, like a lot of people who end up in New York, try to move to the city, after, and I quickly figured out, yeah, man, it's not for me. I love visiting NYC. It's a great place to be. But for me, it's not necessarily a great place to live. I live in LA. I feel like people are either LA or New York. You don't really understand that till you live in both. And they can be similar places, but LA's so much more spread out. I'm a person from Ohio. And while there definitely isn't anywhere near as much grass, it's just so much more spread out. We have legitimate beaches out here. I won't even go into the debate between LA and New York. Y'all know where my money's at. But I spent a little time in the city, got out, got back to Ohio. It was interesting. I really had to figure out what that next phase was, what that career was. Radio came full circle, and I actually started working for my hometown hip-hop R&B station, 101.1 The Wiz, part of the Radio 1 group. So we had The Wiz hip-hop, we had 100.3, which was like old school R&B, and then pretty sure that we had an AM station. I don't think they have it anymore. But an AM like black radio station. And it was cool. I was selling advertisement, so pretty much trying to get local businesses, regional businesses, national businesses, if I could, to advertise. And it was around the time where like social media is really starting to take off. So I'm coming, talking to people about stuff that they don't even know about yet because it's fucking Ohio. But it was interesting, and that directly, made me trip and fall into what ended up being my career, recruiting. Tried to sell someone on our services that flipped into them offering me a job, and the rest is history. I started working in recruiting, started working at startups as well. It was a pretty cool experience. I got to work for a black-owned business, black-owned startup, hire staffing services, and they're actually owned by two former athletes. One of them a former Bengals player, Dhani Jones. So it was like working in the startup scene, working in a new industry, working for like black entrepreneurs, like black former athletes. Like it made too much sense. Like my older sister had given me his book for like Christmas randomly like years before. So it was like one of those things where it was like, all right, I have to do this. So I got in the recruiting game, and recruiting is interesting. It's like, I don't think anyone grows up thinking they're going to be a recruiter or like planning to, but like when you look back, you probably have some of the signs that are telling you're going to be one. Same thing with the salesperson, which they are the same but different. Yeah, I got into recruiting, and like it's just a crazy world. You deal with people like nonstop. That's literally your existence, to deal with people. A lot of recruiters' jobs is interviewing and then brokering people. You're like the ultimate middleman, which is interesting. But yeah, dealing with people, you learn a lot. Dealing with people in that capacity in your hometown, you learn a lot about your hometown. And I was recruiting in manufacturing, engineering type industries, and like all of the jobs that kind of have to do with that. So you learn a lot when you're dealing with everyone from like the button pusher, like wrench turner, hourly employee, to the managers and owners that you're talking to on the top end to like seal the deal. So yeah, learning about business, learning about people, learning about organizations is a real crash course. I took that and ran with it. Like I couldn't be in Cincinnati much longer. I think I was back home for like not even 2 years. And it was like reverse culture shock moving back home after college. Like I just got everything I was looking for culture-wise, and then moved back to Ohio, and it's like they had barely moved a beat. Like they gentrified downtown a bit. For some reason, they had built like a streetcar, and people like really like soccer all of a sudden, and like craft beer. It's like, okay, cool. I'm pretty sure I was the first person to wear Chelsea boots in Cincinnati, and I swear I almost got lynched. But yeah, I started visiting LA and fell in fucking love. I visited LA like 2 or 3 times in like a 6-month period. And the third time didn't come back. No. Really came out here twice in like a 6-month period. And by the time I landed on the plane home the second time, I had written out a plan to move to LA. 4 months out here, 4 months later, I was out here. And some things had happened, on my visit. I had really gotten a glimpse at the cannabis industry and like legal weed, which is great. And the whole recruiting thing was clicking, where it's like, okay, this industry is really about to blow up. They're going to need recruiting. Like it's going to be hard to staff because this is a tough industry. It's illegal. So I moved out here to try and figure that out. And was lucky enough to trip and fall into an actual like cannabis recruiting company once I got out here. Or not once I got out here. It took me a little bit of time. Maybe it took me like a year and some change to get in the cannabis industry. I was doing a bunch of odd jobs and finessing recruiting gigs along the way, working for some startups. But yeah, I used that recruiting experience to dive right into a recruiting startup in cannabis, and it was a perfect match. It was a no-brainer. And once again, I dealt with everyone from lower-level hourly bud tenders, trimmers, all the way to owners, CEOs. But like cannabis is so grassroots, all puns intended, in such a new industry. In some senses, like it's even beyond that. I'm dealing with investors. I'm dealing with everyone. It's nuts the type of movement you can do in the cannabis industry, especially if you have skills that can transfer over, and if you're lucky and hop into a spot that fits your experience perfectly, like me. So like all of that stuff happening was the perfect whirlwind that essentially led to me being in the position I am in now. I've been recruiting in some sense in cannabis for the past, COVID's going by so fast, like 3-4 years now, which is nuts, probably more than that. Time means nothing to me, despite the title of this podcast. So I worked for the cannabis recruiting agency for about 3 years. And within that time, like this industry is all about networking and really about who you can help and people helping each other, people connecting with each other. With my network of people, I really started consulting and want to take that to the next level. Last year, with everything going on, saw a perfect opportunity to do so. Really, with the goal of helping as many Black and brown individuals as I can, and really long term, especially as this industry goes out. Like, I definitely want to save this for a different episode, but like everything I'm learning here, the more I can bring back to Ohio and like the Caribbean, like honestly New York, where the places I actually like really care about, like oof, that's the type of stuff that really gets me excited. But yeah, just building off of that network, building off of that network, building a business more of my own is something I've always been passionate about. So saw that opportunity last year and dove head first. And yeah, and in that time, because it's been more than an official year of business, which is crazy. My official business is actually called MG Islands Group. I found some amazing projects that I really believe in, that I'm excited about, that are really catching some momentum that we'll talk about as we go into it. So, I find myself 5 years into my Los Angeles career, sitting as a cannabis consultant / many other things. I like to think of myself as at this point, a sales and recruiting operations professional. Most businesses are selling something, whether it's a service, whether it's a product, they're selling something. I can help that business sell better or sell more. And the result of that is your business growing, which means you need to hire more people. And I'm an expert at that. There's a lot of things that happen in between that companies struggle with, and I'm able to connect those dots. So it's an interesting set of skills. I mentioned I actually do use a lot of what I learned in school, just in terms of being able to understand people, understand processes, understand how they connect, how they work together, understanding how to improve them from a football standpoint, from a sports standpoint. Like that's sports. I played safety as well. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. So, really the eyes of the defense, looking at everything 20 yards back, having to understand really what every single person on the field is doing in front of you. A lot of this stuff translates. So it's one of those things where it's like, this isn't something I grew up wanting. This isn't something I necessarily grew up thinking I was going to do or wanting to do. You asked me probably up until like 12 or 13, I wanted to be a dinosaur, and then past that, I've wanted to be a superhero. Still, ask me now if I could be anything, superhero, 100%. I take that back. Superpowers. I will be very specific. I want superpowers, not necessarily a superhero. I'll decide that once I get the powers. We'll leave. That's up to fate at that point. But not something I ever necessarily planned on. But the accumulation of skills has led me right to this position. I've always been a creative, whether it's music, whether it's art, of many varieties. I've always been a creative person, And this is a different form of creativity. Like, the voice is a very powerful tool, especially today. The voice is a very powerful tool. So finding creative ways to spread that voice, to have that voice reach as many people as possible, especially with my experiences, the more people I can, like I mentioned, bring different perspective, more people I can impact positively. Like, that's really what life's about. Like, how many people can you impact positively before you turn back into 5 minerals, 5 elements? So finding creative ways to do that, like this podcast, especially as the cannabis industry grows, cannabis industry develops, more information I can spread about that, the better. Now, that being said, this is not a cannabis podcast. There's a lot of cannabis podcasts out there. This is not a cannabis-specific podcast. Cannabis is a big part of my life. Big part of my life. I obviously work in the industry. I consumed as a college athlete and really was introduced to cannabis for medical purposes. Like, I didn't smoke cannabis for the first time until college, really. My dad was my track coach my entire life, and I wasn't about to fuck that up. So I didn't smoke cannabis until really college, and it wasn't until it was actually a medical reason. Like, college, really, motherfuckers really start hitting in college, and that shit hurts. And the way I played football, I just run full speed into people, and I was gonna get up 9 times out of 10. That 1 time out of 10 led to me needing some cannabis. So it really was a medical reason. It was a big part of my life, but that's not what I want this podcast to be about. One of the reasons is, it's always been one of my few gripes about the industry is a lot of people it's constant industry talk, constant cannabis talk. And when I indulge in the plant, that's like the last thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about everything else. I want to talk about aliens, anime, art. Want to get my hands dirty and fuck around and garden and some plants, go outside, run around. Like, I want to do anything but sit there and talk about weed. So that's not what this podcast is about. It will be a theme. It will be a theme. It'll come up in conversation. There'll be some guests from the industry, or guests that I've met through the industry, we'll say. And cannabis is a plant that, definitely brings people together. Brings people together, opens the mind, opens the third eye, if you will. So, Mary Joanna is going to be around. She'll be a co-host, if you will. There we go. Mary Jane Watson, is the co-host of this show. She's not getting credits, but she's an unofficial co-host. Shout out to her. This podcast is sponsored by weed. I'm fucking with y'all. So yeah, I'm just giving y'all little tidbits, little tad bits, a little biscuit in a basket about who I am, about what I'm about. I don't want to give y'all too much because I don't want to bore you too early, but also I want to be able to expand on some of the things we spoke about. I want to engage in conversation. Like, as you're listening, like, engage. Like, shoot me DMs, shoot me messages, hate mail, love mail, whatever mail. I don't give a fuck. But, if you want to learn more, you want to know more, ask some questions. Might bring them into rotation throughout the show. If you guys are curious about the life and times of T'Challa Hendrix, life and times of Jerry Cornelius, the real white wolf, wielder of the Doom Swords, 428th Emperor of Melnibonian. If you're interested, curiosity did not kill this cat. Well, I mentioned I'm an athlete. mentioned I work in the cannabis industry. I mentioned I consume cannabis for medical reasons due to sports. I almost feel obligated to talk about the Olympics and what's been going on. Because as an avid track lover, an avid Olympics lover, an avid track and Olympics lover, like to the point where, like I said, my father's my track coach my entire life. He ran on the Bayesian national team and almost competed in the Olympics. But unfortunately got injured. And honestly, if he wouldn't have gotten injured and competed in the Olympics, who's to say I'd ever even be born? You probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast. Or you would be. Would it probably be in Spanish and or with a British accent? So find those variants if you can. The British Puerto Rican Justinian variant, Ricky Spanish, smooth motherfucker. Be careful with him. But that podcast, probably crazy, probably lit. But yeah, I love the Olympics. I actually went to the Olympics with my family in '96 because it was in Atlanta. It's not too far from Cincy. My pops was not about to miss a chance to go to those Olympics. So we went. I fucking love the Olympics. Ooh, love track. I didn't know all of y'all cared so much about the Olympics and track. It's like a every 4 years thing. People care about stuff that I care about. Stuff like that used to piss me off. Kind of like it used to piss me off how everyone loves Dragon Ball Z now, and I've been trying to name my son Vegeta since I heard the name. And y'all think it's sexy, but I digress. Yeah, the Olympics are dope. And hoopla, hoopla. Hoopla. It's unfortunate. I'll start by saying that. The whole situation is unfortunate. Because it's all built on bullshit. Like the foundation of the whole conflict, the issue that is the young lady getting banned for cannabis, is all built on bullshit, racist bullshit rules that are putting us in a really dumb position right now as a country as we try to figure out how we're going to legalize this, but have to undo all these racist bullshit rules that we put down. I say we loosely because I have nothing to do with this shit. But racist bullshit rules are the reasons why young ladies banned more than anything. As an athlete who consumed cannabis in college, I'll say a couple of things. I do believe it's performance enhancing to me personally. A couple of reasons why. Like I said, I play safety. I run full speed into people for a living pretty much when I played football. Anxiety can't be a thing. Pain, for the most part, can't be a thing. I've woken up in a hospital bed 2 separate occasions when the last thing I remember was playing football. So from everything from a keeping me calm in game to letting me not give a fuck about shit to pretty sure there's been studies about respiratory health and all of that stuff because I am asthmatic and I definitely think cannabis helps with that. But I think the main reason is the recovery aspect of it, from my brain recovering to my Achilles recovering. It's just more the general recovery of I feel better and my muscles recover faster because I'm smoking cannabis. That, in my mind, is performance enhancing. It's not the way most people assume performance enhancing is. Oh, I'm taking steroids and 30 minutes later I'm hitting home runs. That's not even how steroids works. It's not how cannabis works. It's not that people are consuming and then going out there and running faster. It's more the recovery piece. If you're able to recover quicker, you're more available, you can train harder. If you train harder, it's almost proven you're going to get better training results. Match that with talent, timing, luck, boom, beautiful things can happen. She had the talent, she didn't have the timing, she definitely didn't have the luck. So for those reasons, the performance enhancing thing, that's the one argument people can have. The main argument about that really is about the availability piece, where specifically THC cannabis isn't available to everyone, especially in Asia. So okay, from an athletic standpoint on the Olympics, can't do it. Once again, bullshit, but those are the rules of the game. And that's really the biggest point. The Olympic Games, something that motherfuckers made up 100 or so, however long ago, that really don't have anything to do with true politics or any politics. It's just rules of a game, rules of sports. So like that, while the rules are racist bullshit, this sporting games, they exist outside of politics. So it's like, those are the rules to the games. Unfortunately, she failed the test, because that's really what it's about. She failed the test. And it's like, those things, in my mind, I can be as random as shit. I got tested multiple times in college, and I know for a fact, they're supposed to give you a 24-hour notice. I know for a fact I was smoking within that 24 hours, and I passed somehow. I remember I got the call, and it was the off season, so I was working, and by the time I find out, I'm consuming cannabis maybe 12 hours before, and I ran my ass to CVS, got some random herbal supplements, and chugged 2 things of cranberry juice and called it a day and prayed a bit. And I got lucky. So it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate how big of a deal it became. I understand why people are upset, but it didn't need to be as polarized as it is. Like, it is what it is. No need to make young lady a scapegoat. No need to try and pretend that she's going to be a cannabis brand representative and put the industry on her shoulders. She probably doesn't actually have interest in that. She's a true elite athlete. Like, she's trying to make Nike money and beyond. She's trying to set world records. But it's like, it's just an ugly reaction from us once again. And us, I mean Americans. I might be a little skewed because I work in the cannabis industry, so like I see a lot of like their reaction and how butthurt people get. But it's like, y'all, like, she's gonna be all right. Number one thing she needs to do is keep her head down and just keep running and go break the world record regardless of what happens at the Olympics, because no one can argue with the world record. No one can argue with that until it gets broken. But yeah, that's what she needs to do. Keep on running. Bans happen in track all the time. Justin Gatlin literally was banned for a minute for doping. I want to say HGH. He did his bid. Luckily for him, this was before cancel culture, so he didn't necessarily get canceled, but like, he did his shit, took his knock, trained his ass off, and then is competing with Usain Bolt at the past couple of Olympics. This is the first one he's not going to be at because he's, I'm pretty sure, like 40 or something. So it's like, take your knock. If you can't do wrong right, don't do wrong at all. You get faster. Get faster and learn from this. And the number one thing is really just build a team, build a better team. Because when I think about myself in this situation, potentially, ahead of the Olympics, regardless of the reason as to why, I would have had like 6 different people instant transmission and karate chop the blunt out of my hands before I even take a hit. Because they know, because we're that connected, because we're that tapped in. It's like that level of network that like those level of elite people need to have. Like LeBron's got that level of a tapped in network. There's a reason he's been able to be this clean in his career, because he has people that are that close to him. You gotta have that at that level. Gotta have it. So I know she's gonna be all right. I know she will be all right. I just hope some of y'all are gonna be all right, because the way some of these reactions were looking. Yeah, but I'm not banning or boycotting the Olympics. I fucking love the Olympics. I'm excited. USA might not, get the love they're necessarily looking for this year. I mean, we're already looking bad. Basketball's a joke. Our men's 3-on-3 basketball team didn't even make the Olympics. That doesn't even fucking make sense. That doesn't make sense. I feel like I know 3 people I could put on a team that can make the Olympics ahead of the random bozos that didn't make it. Like, look it up. Look up. It's hilarious. But yeah, I'm trying to see handball. I'm trying to see rugby. Trampoline is always crazy lit. They got skateboarding and surfing in the Olympics now. Like, oof. And it's going to be in LA in 2028. We'll see if I'm still out here by then. I mean, but the way shit's going, I'll be here before we know it. That's just a blip away. Yo. Y'all still with me? Y'all still with me? I hope so. We're wrapping up this first episode. Like I said, I'm just trying to give you guys a little taste of, what this is about, who I am. Hopefully you guys have gotten a little bit of a glimpse through my thick-ass glasses lenses. I actually went to the eye doctor today, and they have new technology where they don't have to dilute your eyes or whatever it is, dilate your eyes. They don't have to dilate your eyes so you're blind for the rest of the day. They take cool pictures of your retina. Super fire. But hopefully you've enjoyed this little glimpse through my lenses. And hopefully you guys continue to enjoy this podcast. At the end of the day, I'm trying to have fun. Hopefully you guys can tell if I'm having fun or not. I always think, when I'm talking to people on the phone, you can kind of always tell if someone's smiling or not, someone's having a good time. You can tell if a musician or an actor or an athlete's having a great time. So if I'm having a good time, I feel like you guys are going to have a good time. So have fun. Think a little bit differently. Have a different conversation. Share some different voices, including mine. When I think about growing up, young Justinian, the interesting young man he was, even now, there aren't many voices that I can really tap into and really resonate with that aren't fucking fictional characters. That aren't from anime or sci-fi or books. It's interesting. There's so many opinions out there, so many thoughts out there, and I dive, and very few there's bits and pieces there. There's bits and pieces here and there, but really. And maybe it doesn't exist, but someone that's really yeah, that's my fucking person. Role models and mentors has always been an interesting thing. I don't know if anyone else has ever had as much trouble as I have actively seeking out a mentor. Professionally, personally, whatever. I don't know. But I have one now. Shout out to him. Just having a voice is having a voice that you can really tap into. I think in this day and age, having a voice that you can really tap into, that you can really align with, is so important these days. Because there is a lot of false information out there. It's Attack of the Clones out there in a lot of ways. It's wild to me that, I don't know if y'all recently saw TikTok. It's hit over 3 billion users or 3 billion downloads. I'm not an active TikTok user. I don't use it. I kind of Doesn't do much for me, and Instagram Reels is the same thing, even though, they copied it, whatever. I don't need to download another app, but like, that's almost half the world's population is on TikTok. If for some reason almost all the shit I see are the trending shit, and I've tapped in because I thought about getting it originally, but it's almost all the same. It's like different variations of the same shit. Instagram, we already know about that. And it's like, how we got half the population on an app doing different variations of the same shit? It's gotta be different. Has to be something different. Even if it's made up, make you think, make you do some research and homework. I might slip some shit in there. I may make y'all think about something differently. Like, there's a lot of things that I see go on that people just allow going on because it is. That's just how they know. And I used to get in trouble for this all the time, Leslie, growing up. Even now, just asking why. People hate that question. People hate the question why. As an entrepreneur, I fucking love that question. A lot of other entrepreneurs don't like it, depending on your position. Like, if you're the boss, like, whatever. If you're not the boss probably doesn't like why. Like, I've been in companies where, like, people will go crazy trying to work through a process or work through something or, like, stick to a rule. And I'll just be like, yo, we just made this up, like, 6 months ago. Why can't we change it? And people will act like I just committed blasphemy. And it's like, we literally just made this up ourselves 6 months ago. This isn't a law. It might be a rule. It isn't a law. I mean, we changed either one. And that's kind of how I feel with a lot of things going on right now. It's like, yo, we can literally change all of this. We can change it. It is our choice. Humans are powerful, powerful creatures. We're not the only creature with it, but we're definitely the creature with the most powerful ability to manifest. Like, damn near, I mean, not even damn near, everything in front of us, wherever you are, open your eyes, look around you. All of that was once an idea in the mind of a human being. Every single thing around you that is not nature or natural was once inside the mind of a human being, and we created it. So the fact that we allow certain things to be as they are, that's criminal. That's blasphemy. That's sin. Not to go too serious, but it's like, come on, y'all. I've always thought like that. I don't think very many people really think like that. If they do, if you do, holla at me. Holla at me. We have to talk. Maybe not literally, but like, we need to get the people together. We need to get the group together. We need to shift the paradigm.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Y'all still with me? Doing okay? Haven't freaked you out yet? Bear with me, we're almost done here. Like I said, I just wanted to give y'all a quick little snippet, quick little taste, get you guys acclimated to Panther time, get over the jet lag real quick. I hope you enjoyed first episode. Hope you'll tune in to other episodes as we dive in deeper to some of the topics that might have been brought up today. We're going to get nerdy. We're going to get weird. We're going to talk sports. We're going to talk culture. We're going to get a little chisme. But the main thing is, I want to get the gears turning. I'm going to start thinking about different perspectives. I've talked about a lot of the reasons, I want to start this podcast. Big reason at the end of the day is really just fucking have fun. I've always thought of myself as a creative person, and this is a cool creative endeavor. Art has many mediums, art has many tools. And this is almost like the other voice art form other than music in some sense. I haven't decided if I'm going to video record any of these yet. I might on special episodes, but I kind of just like the power of the voice, like just the voice. You really have to lock in, tune in, close your eyes. Tune in to Panther time. Might get real low and sexy on you sometimes. You won't know what's coming until it does on Panther time. But yo, I can have fun with this shit. And if I'm having fun, I'm quite confident y'all are gonna have fun. And that's what this is all about. So I'll leave y'all with this. For young J Mace, chilling in the 90s somewhere, Panther time is here to light that beacon, to be that voice for all individuals who think with that different perspective, aren't afraid to ask why, aren't afraid to go against the grain. Panther time is for you. Hope you enjoyed this episode, y'all. I'm gonna get creative. Gonna have fun. By the end of this, we might actually bring on a real life Panther. We'll see. Till next time, y'all.